Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Okay, I'm wicked excited. And I'm going to tell you that this episode is kind of unlike any other episode that I've ever done before. So just buckle up for safety. And here's what I hope. That at the end of this episode, like at the very least, you'll have had a little fun. That is if you play along. So I'm going to ask you to play along, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. But I'm just forewarning you. I'm just giving you an old heads up that this is unlike anything I've ever done before. And I hope you'll play along. I hope you'll have some fun. And at the very least, I hope that you will learn something about yourself. Now, I'm going to start like I always do, with a little backstory, a little story, and then I'm going to add in some information, some responses that relate to the backstory, and then we're going to play a little game. So if you can hear the sound of my voice and you are someplace safe, I mean, not driving, not operating heavy machinery, and you have access to either a pen and paper, a pencil and a journal, a friggin' phone that you can type into and take notes, whatever. You might want this for a little bit later in the episode. First of all, let me also just say welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. If you especially are a loyal listener, I love that we get to spend time together every week. It makes me really happy in my heart. I'm doing a little squishy. I have a little squishy in my heart just thinking about it. And if you're new to the show, how fun is that? So whoever invited you, whoever sent you a link, whoever referred you to the podcast, however your ass got here, I am so happy that you're joining us. And I also just want you to know that this is not the typical way that I would probably do these episodes, right? So if you're like, this was weird, what was this all about? I'm going to explain why this episode is this way, and I hope you'll come back for more. So for those of you who don't know, maybe you're new to the show, I have a lot of things like after my name, and I don't necessarily mean that in a fancy schmancy, like I don't have a master's of anything. I'm not a master of anything. I don't have PhD and fancy letters, but I am certified. I have been in my line of work for a wicked long time. So things like this, certified. I am certified in a bunch of things. Okay. I'm a certified spiritual mentor. I am a certified integrative change worker. I'm a certified life coach, certified yoga teacher, certified hypnotist, certified gateless writing instructor, Reiki mat, all the stuff, right? All the stuff. And that's only important because I bring all of these things, spiritual mentoring, life coaching, change work, hypnosis, yoga, the spirituality and the brain science, like all this stuff. I love to bring it together, which is what we're kind of talking about today and what this episode is about. Now, the other reason why, you know me, you guys, I'm totally transparent. Okay. The other reason why I'm doing this episode is because, and please stick around, even if you're like, oh God, this isn't going to be some wicked long sales pitch. All right. But I want you to understand where the impetus, where the inspiration for this episode came from. So, I think you guys will hopefully hear this episode around, like, I think it's coming out like September 14th or something like that. And on September 18th is when my podcast, my group coaching program, The Alchemy, it's my new group coaching program, The Alchemy, kicks off. It begins on Monday, September 18th. I only have 5 seats left. I'm keeping it wicked intimate and small, just 12 people. And so this is just an opportunity for me to like share a little bit about what I do. But more importantly, this is about you being able to self-identify if this kind of work could be helpful to you, could be something that you could use, could be something that you could need, could be something that might help you to grow and expand. And we're going to, again, I'm going to dive into all of this, but this is really more about you being able to self-identify, to recognize some things in yourself, about yourself, your wants, your desires, your dreams, and things like that. Okay, so like I said, I hope you'll stick around. I hope you'll play along and just grab a pen and a piece of paper right now for when the time comes. So let me just kind of tell you where this came from. So I was talking with my friend Emmeline, and I was actually talking to my friend Emmeline and my friend KT, but Emmeline was the one who asked me this question. And we kind of have this ongoing joke about how even though we've both been doing the work that we do for a wicked long time, sometimes the people closest to us, people in our life, they still don't know what we do. Like either they don't get it, they don't care to get it. They're always just like, wait, what do you do again? Or when they ask you something, like I haven't had a yoga studio in over 10 years. And I'll still have family members who see me randomly be like, so how's the yoga studio going? And I'll be like, oh my God, well, why can't people realize that I haven't had a studio in like 10 years. So we kind of have this joke, Emmeline and I, about like, how is it that people don't really know what we do? So, okay. We were talking about on one of these calls, right, that I do, these brain trust calls that we have together, about me being a spiritual mentor, a coach, all this stuff, a change worker, blah, blah, blah. And she said some things that like literally stopped me in my tracks. And I want to share them with you because these are the 3 questions that she asked me. And when she first asked me these questions, you know, like how when a dog hears a funny sound or a weird sound, they kind of do that little quirky head tilt, like, what? Like what? So when she first asked me these things, I totally was like doing the quirky head tilt. But then like I really leaned in and I really started listening like a hawk because I thought these were fantastic, like clarifying questions. And from these questions that she asked me, I wrote this email that really landed for people. So I'm going to break it down for you. Like, so here's the story portion of this episode. Okay. So imagine I'm on a Zoom call. I'm hanging out with my friends. Emmeline says this to me. This is what she asked me. She said this: do you think that other people think that you only work with people who've had a lot of trauma or are going through big traumatic stuff? And I kind of was just like, okay, good question. Do I think that other people think that I only work with people who've had like a wicked big amount of trauma? Good question. Then she went on and she asked me this. She says, do you think that people don't raise their hands to work with you because they don't, quote unquote, get, like they don't get, you know, what it is you do, like the incredible work that you do as a mentor and as a hypnotist and as a coach. And now like I'm really fine tuning my ears and like listening to these questions because I think they're fantastic. And just so you know, because the way that I learn and the way that I sometimes know how I feel about a thing, if it's for me or not for me, is by responding to something. So when somebody asks me questions that aren't like wicked open-ended, but they really set me up to be able to respond in a half intelligent way, it's like gold for me. It's like so important. So she asked me this: do you think that they don't, you know, raise their hand to work with you because they don't actually, quote unquote, get the incredible work that you do? And then she asked me this. She says, is it possible that people sometimes don't sign up for things because they don't self-identify as someone who has, quote unquote, big trauma, or they don't identify or think of themselves as someone who needs to, quote unquote, do the work? And I kind of laughed, like I chuckled at that last one because like, come on, people, who amongst us? I mean, unless you are Jesus Christ or friggin' the enlightened Buddha or some friggin', you are the divine itself come down from friggin' the heavens or whatever, the cosmos. I mean, like who amongst us doesn't still have, quote unquote, work to do? We all need to be, quote unquote, doing the work. Because as long as I am drawing breath in my body, as long as I am alive and on the planet, I will have, quote unquote, work to do. Because this human experience is an ongoing problem. people be peopling until their last breath. So we all, and we're going to talk about the whole doing the work. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? We'll dive into that a tiny bit. Okay. So I'm laughing at this, but these are really good questions that she asked me. And I kind of like to roll things around. So sometimes I'll respond immediately. Sometimes I like to let something roll around in my head and in my heart and like almost like in my hands. Like I like to roll it around kind of like metaphorically in my hands before I say anything back. And so I kind of responded in this like like this kind of like way. And what I said back to her is like, I don't know. Because I don't know all the time what is going on in the minds of the people who are in my newsletter community, like people who are on my email list, the people who get and read and open and respond to my emails. I don't always know like what they think about me. I have a hard time knowing what people think about me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that my brain works. I don't know. I don't know what everybody thinks, right? I don't know what the people who listen to this podcast, unless you guys write to me or leave a review or share it on social media or do something, I'm kind of like sending this out from like I am sending this resource, this free resource, this podcast out into the world as like a love letter from my heart to yours, right? It's just me kind of pouring it out there and sending love out into the world. But unless you guys respond back, I don't know if you like this episode. I don't know if it landed for you or resonated with you or got you thinking differently or had an impact on you unless you respond. So, I mean, when I went to answer Emmeline's question, I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. And I was like, I mean, this is exactly what I said pretty much. I said, I think I've been pretty straightforward and clear about who I work with, what kind of work that I do, where I do the work, how I do the work, and why I do the work. I mean, I think I have been wicked, super duper extra, like clear about like what all that stuff is, you know? But then, dun, 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 dramatic pause, you guys, because then I also heard in my mind the echo rebounding back to me across the years. So like 1988, right? I hear in my mind the voice of my very first communications professor from BU, from Boston University. I will never forget day one, my first communications class ever, and having my professor kind of break down to us about what communication is like and how what you say versus what other people hear. Like how sometimes people need to hear something like 8 times before it even starts to click, before it gets through what I call, I'm not saying anybody out there have knuckleheads. I have a knucklehead, right? I have a little bit of a thick head. So sometimes it takes me a lot of times hearing something, right? This is why repetition is the mother of all learning. This is why repetition is so great, because this is how we create new habits. This is how we learn. This is how we become in both positive and negative ways, but let's run with positive ways for right now. By learning something is by repetition, is by doing it again and again and again, hearing it again and again and again, seeing it again and again and again, like tactile, right? Kinetically, like doing it, feeling it, seeing it, hearing it, smell, all of it, right? That's how that stuff gets in the old noggin, in the old brain. So, but my professor says this, they say, this one line has stayed, obviously it was impactful because it stayed with me all this time. And I was talking about how as I answer Emmeline and I'm like, I don't know. I think I've been wicked clear. And then it was like, you might be old enough. I know you're in my age bracket, right? Gen Z. If you know, when I say these words, ping, 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 ricochet, rabbit, if you know what I'm talking about, that's what it was like. It was like my professor's voice was like, ping, 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 rebounding around in my brain. And then all of a sudden I hear the sentence. and this is the sentence, the message sent is not always the message received. The message sent is not always the message received. So I realize as Emmeline is asking me these questions that just because I think I've done a good job of communicating, again, who I work with, where I do the work, what work I do, how I do it, who it's for, why I do it, all this stuff. It doesn't mean that just because I think I've been doing a good job that people are picking up what I'm putting down. You know what I'm saying? So, and I will say this, we all learn differently. We all need to hear things multiple times. So some person might hear me say, yeah, I'm a spiritual mentor. This is what I do. I work online. I do this. I have events. I do retreats. I have a podcast. I do one-to-one work. I do group work. And they go like, oh yeah, they get it. Most other entrepreneurs or coaches and people who work online, they're like, yeah, I totally get that. I know what you do. And then there's a whole bunch of people that are probably like, wait, you do what? You work online? What the fuck is spiritual mentoring? Wait, what? How do you help people? Okay, so this was the thing. So I write this email. What Emmeline says to me, and I get thinking, and I hear my professor's voice in my head, right? I bet some of you can relate to this, where all of a sudden you hear this thing, and it's like, okay, I want to make sure that nobody gets left behind, that I make this so super. I'm grabbing my head right now for those of you who are, oh my God, listening and not watching. If you are somebody who always listens to this show, it could be fun sometime to just watch it. I just made my hair a mess. And if you're somebody who always watches the show, it might be fun to try just having it as an auditory experience. Just see what it's like. So anyways, I'm grabbing my head and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to try to make this as wicked clear as possible. So I wrote this email, and I know the email was impactful because when people actually take the time to respond and share with me a little something, to leave, whether it's just leaving a kind word or saying, oh my God, I love this email, or they're saying like, this is the path that really resonated for me or landed for me, then I'm like, I know I've done my job, and I know that I've communicated clearly, maybe not always concisely, because I am a storyteller and I like to give details and whatever, but I've done my job. So one of the responses to the email that I wrote, I heard from one of my friends who does human design, Meg Haynes. She's brilliant, Meg Marinaccio. And she said, the way that you did that was so fantastic because you being, and I'm not even going to get into all the what profile I am or whatever, but she's like, because you have this line in your chat, she's like, how you experience yourself is different than how people experience you and project onto you. And what you think you're saying in, pretty clearly, other people might be hearing it differently. So she's like, the way that you broke this down was so incredibly helpful. And another person wrote to me and they said, I'm going to be general here, but they basically said, what you're describing, and you guys will hear this in a second, what you're describing, I used to think that too, until I started intently following you and paying attention basically to what I was saying. Right? She came to a couple of workshops. She listened to the podcast. She read my posts online. She's on my email list. And it started to she shifted her mind from what she thought to what really is. So here's the piece, and I'm going to read this to you. And then I'll let you know, we're getting close to the time where I'm going to ask you to play along and do the little quiz part. Okay. And this might relate to some of you. I hope you know this isn't just about me. In me trying to help people identify. That's what the heartbeat of this episode is for people to be able to maybe identify, right, why they might be a good candidate to do work with me, to do quote unquote the work. And like I said, we're going to talk about that in a second. Right? But it doesn't have to just be with me. You might have been thinking about, oh man, maybe I want to, start, doing this, or I want to work with a different coach, or I want to work with a mentor, or I want to go to therapy, or I want to do whatever. Right. So just kind of, I'm going to break into like that list. Right. And why it was so helpful. But here's the thing that I want to be so friggin' clear about. And I understand how this can be a little confusing for people. Because if you know my history and my background in my childhood and my trauma, right, you might think like, oh my God, right? For those of you who know my story, you can go back, listen to episode 1, 2, 3, whatever. Right. I always say, I lost my mother when I was 12 years old. She was murdered. She was beaten to death. It was tragic. It was awful. It was whatever. All the adjectives, right? It was all those things: violent, brutal, awful, terrifying, horrifying, all those things. And that is like the heartbeat of why I do the work that I do today, right? I had my own trauma, my own suffering, my own grief, my own fears. Oh my God. Lack of trust. The world seemed like a big, scary place, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of my own, again, right, suffering. So a lot of the work that I do is helping people who are trying to navigate, right, this being human experience and all the big, scary things that can happen. And I often do work with people who do have big things going on in their life. If you listen to my episode with Jordan, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to be wicked clear. And these are the four things I wrote in my newsletter. Okay. The work that I do in my one-to-one mentoring program, The Quest, the work that we do in my group coaching program, The Alchemy, and the work that we do at my transformational retreats, Own Your Magic. Okay. It's not just for people who have had horrific or hard childhoods. You might relate to that. Okay. It's not just for people who've experienced big traumatic shit, although that might be you as well. It's not just for people who are going through grief or who have lost a loved one or something equally, right, big. That might be you as well. And it's not just for people who are navigating like massive life stuff. This work that I do is not just for these kinds of people who are navigating things like death or disease or divorce or diagnosis or disappointment or whatever, right? This work isn't just for like big life, traumatic, horrifying, scary things. It's also for those people, but that's not who it's only for or just for, right? I work with all kinds of people who are navigating all kinds of things, and they're not all like textbook, typically like hugely traumatic and awful. And this is what I want to make wicked clear. So before I dive into who this work is also for, and this is the quiz portion, that will be the fun kind of like play along portion. Let's just kind of talk about for a second this whole like doing the work. I think a lot of times people either don't know what that means. They think they've already, quote unquote, done the work, that they don't need to do the work anymore. Or they don't even know what the fuck the work is, right? But here's the thing. As I said back at the beginning, if you are a human being, if you are alive, if you are in any kind of relationship at all, and it could just be with yourself, because that is the hottest one to be in, trust me. Okay. It's like, then this kind of work, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is for you. I think everybody pretty much on the planet can benefit from good mentorship, good coaching, good support. I don't think there's anybody on this planet where it's not helpful to have a person or a community where there's accountability, where there's, kind feedback, where there's encouragement, where there's cheerleading, where there's people who are doing the same similar kind of work, where you're all swimming in the same direction and helping each other get there. I think everybody can benefit from these kinds of things. But the work, whether you call, quote unquote, the work mindset work, whether you call it personal development work, whether you call it like coaching work, right? Where you're trying to bring your life to the quote unquote next level, whether it's going after your dream work, whether it's spiritual mentoring work, where you want to kind of dive into your relationship with yourself, with source, with spirit, with learning spiritual tools, creating a daily spiritual practice. What are the rituals that resonate with you? How do you want to start your day? How do you want to live your life? Who are you being? This is the work. How do you talk to yourself? How do you think? What do you believe? What are the stories you write about yourself? What's the identity that you've created based on what's happened to you? What are your habits? What is your conditioning? What are your patterns, right? You know, if you have anxiety, this work is for you. Like, you know what I mean? So in this day and age, personal development work, mindset work. And what's fascinating is a lot of people don't think that they don't need this work or don't think about this work because they're not interested in growing. They're not interested in self-awareness. They're not interested in knowing themselves. They're not interested in being responsible for their happiness and their suffering. They're not interested in owning their brilliance or their bullshit. The kind of people that want to do this work are the kind of people that are paying attention and they're noticing, hey, my life isn't quite going the way that I would want it to. I'm not quite that happy. I feel really lonely. I feel overwhelmed. I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel alone, right? I'm scared out of my mind all the time. I've been numbing. I've been avoiding. I've been overcommitting, right? Blah, blah, blah. And they fall into all these different categories. And I kind of wrote it down, right? So again, right? Again, whether you want to call this stuff coaching, change work, mindset work, personal development work, self-help work, self-growth work, I don't care what you call it. Okay. But these are the kinds of things, the kinds of areas, and pay attention. Because if any of this is resonating with you, you might be a good fit for the alchemy, but you also just might be a good fit for somebody who wants to get a library card and start reading some books to learn more about yourself. Self-knowledge is one of the most important things that you can do while you're alive. Getting to know yourself. Why do I think what I think, believe what I believe, say what I say, do what I do, show up how I show up, speak how I speak? What is life about if not those things? So this is why I think everybody should do the work. Everybody, whether they know it or not in some way, are either doing the work or not doing the work, avoiding doing the work. You're either moving towards it or you're running away from it. It is happening regardless of your level of awareness of its presence or lack of presence. Okay. So these are some of the things. And I'm going to individualize them, but these are like the chunks. So in my email that I wrote, right, I did those 4 disclaimers, right? This work isn't only for people who've had horrific or hard childhoods. It's not just for people who've experienced big traumatic shit. It's not just for people who are going through grief or loss of a loved one. It's not just for people who are navigating massive life stuff. It might also be those things, but this work is also for. Now, this is when you want to get your pen and your paper out and play along. Now, you don't have to write down these whole sentences. You might not even write down which ones correlate to you or resonate with you, or the ones where you notice yourself or feel like you want to do double amen hands or raise your hands. But as I read some of these off, if something use your fingers if you don't have paper, just to count them off. Try to keep track if any of these resonate with you, right? So this work, this spiritual mentoring work, the alchemy, the quest, all this stuff that I do. But remember, the alchemy is the one that is probably the affordable one. It is the one, and I say that I know everybody's budgets are different. Quote unquote, affordable is subjective. I'm just saying at the level of work that I do, group coaching program, the alchemy is the one that's starting. It's a 4-month program starting September 18th. And this is really the one that I'm talking about. But this is also the work that I do one-to-one with people in the quest. And I'm also, always taking, I shouldn't say always. Currently, I am taking on a couple of new one-to-one clients if this speaks to you. Okay, so listen up. So in my work that I do as a hypnotist, as a spiritual mentor, as a coach, coaching the conscious and unconscious mind, right? All this stuff. This work is also for people who want to make big and small changes in their life. So if that's you and that resonates with you, write a little check mark. You might even write down change my life or change in my life in a little check mark. Like you get to play along however you want to play along, but keep track of these because at the end you're going to total them up and you're going to see like maybe you weren't aware before that this work is for you. Maybe you didn't know that this was the kind of work that I do. Maybe you didn't know that this was the kind of work that you could do with another person, with support and accountability and cheerleading and encouragement and somebody you can get feedback from and bounce ideas off of, right? So stay with me. All right, number one, this work is also for people who want to make big and small changes in their life. Check that off if that sounds like you. It's for people who want to stop old habits, old patterns, old conditioning that they got put into them when they were a kid. If that's you, do a little check mark. It's for people who want to let go of limiting stories, want to let go of old beliefs, want to let go of some identity that got formed based on things that happened in your childhood, shit that other people said to you that you came to believe about your stuff, the old conditioning and patterns and habits and stuff that no longer supports who you want to be. Okay, check mark on these, right? Also, for people who want to create new empowering shifts in perspective, meaning you want to be able to see yourself differently. You want to be able to see the world around you differently. You want to be able to see yourself and what's possible for you in a new empowered way. Okay. This is for people who want to dismantle perfectionism. Any perfectionists in the house? Any people who are like total, want to release their need to control things? Check on that one, right? You want to dismantle perfectionism? Anybody ready to give that shit up? Little check mark on your piece of paper. You want to release your need to try and control everybody and everything around you because that's how you feel safe? Check that off, okay? This is for people who want to move through the world and show up in curiosity instead of judgment. What would it be like to move through the world in a really curious way? Rather than leading with your assumptions and your opinions and your judgment, it's just all ego stuff that separates. And instead, if you'd rather show up in curiosity and open-mindedness and open-heartedness and open-handedness and being like, oh, I'm going to be beginner's mind. I want to learn. Check that sucker off. If you are ready to cut the crap already with procrastination, double amen, hands, right? Check it off. That might get a check plus, if that resonates with you. Okay. This work is also, right? And these are kind of grouped together in sections. So you might have one from each of these groups. You might have all four. Okay. Listen to this. This is for people who want to quit people pleasing. If you are just fucking exhausted, if you are like on your last breath with how tired you are of being a people pleaser, make a check mark or whatever little squiggly mark that makes your heart happy. If you want to put better, healthier boundaries in place, if you want to stop being a friggin' martyr and you want to have better boundaries, check mark. If you want to find and use your voice, maybe you already know you have a voice, but you just want to get more courageous in using it, check mark, please. Okay. It's also for people who want to learn how to, first of all, sometimes just learn that it's okay for you to have needs and it's okay for you to have feelings. If you're somebody who wants to really get that and accept that and learn that that's really important, that you know that you have needs and that what you want and desire matters, right? If you want to learn how to convey your wants and needs, that might be 2 checks. Check, go for it. Okay. It's also for people who want to learn how to slow down. They want to learn how to pay attention. They want to learn how to be more present. If that's you, if you're like, oh my God, yes, I am so distracted when my kids are trying to talk to me. I'm so distracted when my sweetie or my friend is trying to talk to me. Like I feel like I'm not really present. My mind is always moving 1,000 miles an hour. Man, if that is you, check and maybe double check. For people who want to become more skillful listeners, check that off. People who want to learn how to put down their phones, right? And start living their life. Like just a little bit of a little digital declutter off the social media and the addiction to the scrolling. If that's you, double amen hands and make a mark somewhere. This is for people who want to learn how to live in a more congruent and aligned way. You guys, there's so many of these. All right. I'm going to say a couple of them really fast. This is for people who want to know what spirituality means to them. They want to discover, what does it mean to live a spiritual life? I want to create. So each one of these, check the ones that resonate with you or sound like you, right? You want to create a DSP in a daily spiritual practice. For people who want to have a deeper connection to themselves and to source, into their soul and to spirit. It's for people who want to remember who they are and to whom they belong. Check any one of those four that resonate with you. This is for people who want to like maybe start a business, right? It's not like I'm going to be like, oh, although I could tell you these things. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, right? Like, hey, you need to go to your local government center. You need to fill out the LLC form or start a business or get your EIN number. Like, yeah, shit like that. But I'm just talking like in your heart of hearts. You're like, yeah, I'm in corporate or I've been doing this and I've always wanted to help people with this. I want to start a business doing that. If that's you, check mark something, right? You want to write a book maybe, right? You want to learn to play the guitar. I don't know. You want to make creativity a priority. You want to commit to some big goal. Anytime I say something that like resonates with you, just like bing, okay, check it off. This is for people who want to learn how to stop anxiety in its tracks. This is for people who want to experience powerful visualization and self-directed neuroplasticity tools that are used by elite performers, professional athletes, CEOs, people who want to learn how to know their mind and take back their mind. Okay. This is for people who want to learn evidence-based, life-changing, scientific, and spiritual tools. This is for people who want to learn how to regulate their nervous system. If you have had a dysregulated nervous system, if you've been trapped in the cycle of fight and flight or freeze and fawn, or you've just been exhausted, you know, and just overwhelmed, and you know that your adrenals are like pumping out, your amygdala is always in that survival mode. If you're in that constant chronic stress, right? This work is for you. If you want to stop making excuses and blaming others, the freedom that comes from when you start to realize that other people, I'm not saying other people didn't do some fucked up stuff. I'm not saying other people didn't do some things along the way. But at some point as adults, don't even want to say but, and at some point as adults, we have to take back our power. So if you're somebody who wants to take back your power, mark it off. If you're somebody that wants to stop making excuses and blaming others, little check mark. If you want to forgive yourself or somebody else. You guys, are you seeing where I'm going with this? I mean, I could go on for days and days and days about who doing the work is for, who this work is actually for. It's not just for people who have huge trauma, big stuff. Yes, those people too, right? Because I used to be one of those people. I'm still doing my work around that stuff. I have my own helpers. I have my own mentors. I have my own people that I go to. I know the power of investing in myself. And I always say this, there is no better investment that I could ever make than in myself. In my learning, in my personal development, in my spiritual growth, in me knowing myself, discovering my blind spots to my own bullshit. The places where I stay small, the places where I get myself caught up and stuck. This to me is what life is all about. This is what being alive is all about. Is removing those blocks and barriers and remembering the truth of who I am, coming home to myself, coming back home to love, connecting more deeply with myself, with my creativity, with my artistry, with the way that I serve, with my relationship to the divine, Mother Nature, and the world around me. This to me is what living with purpose and on purpose is about. That's what this work is. Okay. It's for people who want to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's for people who are fucking sick and tired of being sick and tired and having that be the status quo. It's for people who want to learn how to trust themselves more, trust their inner teacher more, trust their gut instinct and their intuition. It's for people who want to grow and expand and stretch and surprise themselves. You guys, come on, somebody. If you want to strengthen your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and your self-love, this work is for you. Doing the work, showing up, right? Whatever program you join, showing up on the calls, doing the homework if there's homework, participating in your own healing, being proactive, growing up, becoming emotionally mature. This is the work. It's also for people who want to release shame, who want to be unshamed, who need like a sympathetic or compassionate witness so they can release their own internalized shame. This is for people who want to learn how to rest without feeling guilty about it. This is for people who want to feel more at ease and at home in their own skin. And this is for people who are so tired of trying to quote unquote figure it all out on their own. If you've tried to do all this stuff on your own and you're still kind of chasing your tail on the gerbil wheel, dog paddling, as my friend KT says, you guys, all of this, I know that you must have made some marks. If you made 0 marks, if none of this sounded like you, if none of this resonated with you, if you did not even remotely see yourself, then you must be a Jedi. You must be a next level angel, like something or other. But you guys, if some part of this spoke to you, called to you, resonated with you, look at just once and for all, just to be really clear, right? And like I said, the list goes on and on and on. But if any of this resonated with you, all those certifications and things I talked about at the beginning, I weave those all together. So when I work with people, it's not just like some one size fits all bonanza, right? When I'm working with people, especially one-to-one, it is so highly personalized, right? But even in a group, the reason why I keep my group so small, I'm limiting it to 12 people and we already have 7, is because I want to be able to connect with each person, right? In a group setting, but still individually. Because what I say to one person might not be what I would give feedback about to another person. Because I try to have it be, right, intimate, and not everybody needs the same quote unquote medicine. You know what I'm saying? And this isn't about fixing anybody. I think of this as more like fine tuning. This is about removing the blocks and the barriers to love. This is about remembering yourself and coming home to yourself and seeing all the different ways that we have gotten in our own fucking way along the way. So I think I'm going to stop there. And I hope that what I am trying to say landed for you in some way. And I want to say thank you to my friends for asking these questions in the first place, to providing me with something to respond to so that I could get more clear about how clear I think I've already been, but clearly needed more clarity. So that's what this episode is all about, is I just want to make it wicked clear so that there's no confusion whatsoever about, oh, well, I listened to your podcast, but I haven't had the kind of trauma that you've had, or this one had, or da 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 da. I'm just like unhappy, or I'm just not that motivated in my life, or I just have these habits that keep me exhausted and stuck and blah, 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 blah. That's what this work is. It's also for fill in the blank. And this is why marketing people tell people to quote unquote specialize and niche down, because they think that you can't actually help people if you talk in a general or a broad way. And I just don't believe that. I don't just work with women. I also work with men. I don't work with people who have only had this much education or this much whatever. I like to say, hey, if this is what you're suffering from, if these are the things that are getting in your way, I believe that I can help if any of this resonates with you. And I offer the podcast in a way to hopefully be able to help people who maybe are not in a financial place yet to be able to afford my services or my offers. And it's why I do things like a retreat. And it's why I sometimes, I offer things here and there. That's why I'll go out and do yoga workshops, which are pretty cheap, to come, to come and attend. And again, I know everybody's socioeconomic statuses are different. I don't mean that flippantly. I remember what it was like to grow up, blue collar, working class, poor kid, So I'm just saying, but I really wanted to send this out because it was important to me. Once Emmeline said that I was wicked clear about this. If you're listening to this and you're still like, but I'm interested in this, but I'm still not sure if it's a good fit for me or whatever, contact me. Go to my website, KarenKenney.com. Go to the contact page, write to me, shoot me an email. I prefer not to do things through social media and DMs. So write to me, Karen at KarenKenney, KENNEY.com. Right? I will respond. I try to do my best to respond within 48 business hours, because look, you guys, I don't want you to miss out on this opportunity, because this first round of the alchemy, this is the cheapest it's ever going to be, right? At this price point. I shouldn't say it's cheap, but it's the lowest the price is going to be. And if you join in the first round and decide to keep going after the 4 months, the original members who sign up for the first round, who grab their seat at the round table, like King Arthur in the Knights, you claim your seat. When you claim your seat, your name is on that seat. So you get first dibs at going into round 2, and you also get to keep that initial first price. This is only for the first 12 people. Like I said, we've already had 7. So you guys, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you. I hope you played along. I hope this was fun. I hope I didn't lose you in there. I know it was a lot of talking, but I want people to be able, even if you don't ever come to work with me, I want you to be able to get better at self-identifying the places in your life. Because if I read those things and you checked off some marks, look at your piece of paper. Look at how many marks you made, how many things that you were like, oh, and I could have kept going, right? How many places in your life where maybe things aren't quite the way that you would like them to be, right? Maybe you have big dreams, maybe you have little dreams, but maybe you just don't feel like you are living as intentionally, with as much intention, attention, purpose, right? And meaning. If you want to have a life that has meaning, right? That you're not just numbing yourself and distracting yourself and going through the motions and blah, blah, blah. And you want more fulfilling relationships and friendships and jobs or career or work or creativity. You guys, I say this with urgency because my 55th birthday is coming up soon. I'm going to be double nickels. And I am so aware that I have less time in front of me than I do behind me. And I want to fully embody myself. I want to fully embody the wholeness of myself, my humanity and my divinity. And that's what this work allows us to do. I want that for you too. You may or may not want that for yourself. But I want everybody to experience the fullness and the wholeness and the holiness of who they are. Right? So may you be and walk in high and holy company. May you keep good company. And that's what the alchemy is all about. I'm going to stop there. I could keep going. This is already a long one. So thank you for tuning in. If you're still here, I appreciate you sticking it out with me. I want to thank my friends for asking those questions. I want to thank my friends who responded. I want to thank the people who wrote back to me in the email. This has been really helpful in me getting more clarity also. So everything that I say, you guys, is also for my ears first. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. I hope you're having an awesome day. And hit me up and respond and let me know if you got a lot of marks on your paper, a lot of check marks. All right, you guys, wherever you go, may you leave the people, yourself, the place, the animals, the environment better than how you first found it. Wherever you go, may your having been there be a blessing.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.